Good evening, welcome to Rivalz Race Chat. Clinton, Geoffrey, and Adam Ross here as we are weekly. And wow, Adam, you look really fluorescent today, looking clean and bright.
Do I?
How's
Now,
it going?
when you say weekly, do you mean that we're on every week, or that our
Yeah, because
performance is weak? We're
I thought
here,
our
but weak.
performance was weak on Saturday, but from the NASCAR Pinty Series race in Edmonton. We'll discuss that a bit. A couple missed
hmm
calls. I was mortified when I saw some of it come back. We always have a good time out there. I meant weekly because normally I would say every Tuesday, but lately it hasn't been every Tuesday. We were off last week for vacation, and then uh, now we're here on a Monday. But let's talk about why we're on a Monday. You and I have been traveling across the country this week. We flew to Edmonton Friday and back yesterday, and then tomorrow we fly to Saskatoon and back Thursday, and then we got Friday weekend. So it's been a whirlwind week for us. And we reached out to Joe Plazic to ask him to come on, and when Joe agreed to come on, we just figured that this is a show that the fans are going to be interactive. We haven't really got Joe on a live show in a long time around here, so to get him on and fans can throw out their thoughts and questions, and instead of taping for tomorrow, we figured we'd go live tonight. So if you're watching it on Tuesday tomorrow, welcome to Monday night. Joe is standing by and getting ready to go. I was going to talk about airplane etiquette, but let's just jump in with Joe. So if you have any questions or anything you want us to talk about, bring Joe up, Spencer. So, Adam, you and I had a real spirited argument about finish lines, and we're not going to start that with Joe. We'll finish off that with Joe, but we got a lot of compliments on our when we fight, people like it. So we're gonna fight about it again because we were fighting in the airport the other day, and we were told to save it for the show. Joe Plazic, welcome to the show, man. So great to have you. I'll say hello, and then Adam can take it away.
I've seen the
Joe,
show
welcome.
before, and I love it. Pardon me?
We you know what, Joe? We appreciate that, and the one thing I appreciate about you is that you're still so involved, and you keep yourself relevant. And I think you keep yourself relevant by sharing opinions. That you're more engaged with racing than a lot of people who are still actively participating. And you may do it from a distance, but you do it pretty well.
Well, I think when you've been on the inside like I have and the level that we were at, I think you have some opinions, whether they're well taken or not. But I believe all my opinions are right. I just hope that everyone else does. But some are popular, some aren't. That's just the way it goes, right? I mean, but I do keep abreast. I know what's going on. I know who's doing what. Maybe not in depth, but on the surface anyway.
Joe, let's talk about your most recent headlines that have been going on. You had a great career at Canandaigua as a champion. They honored you on the weekend. Let's talk a bit about that, and we'll show a couple pictures and what it meant to be recognized at a place where you had such good success. And there you are with our buddy Stephen Ovens getting the award.
Yeah, I know they had the Wall of Fame there, and I kind of thought that one day the phone call would come, and then COVID hit, and it kind of went on the back burner for about 3 years. And lo and behold, when COVID kind of went away, the call came in June, and Paul asked me to, if I come down to be on the wall. And it's such an honor. I mean, I stood back and looked at the names on there the other night. It was like, wow, not my wildest dreams. I ever thought I'd be associated with those kind of names.
Joe, talk about that a little bit, because you were an outsider to Central New York. So you would go down there every weekend, and you became larger than life. You had a huge fan following, but you were still Canada Joe going down there to New York to race. So how did it feel to you? Did you feel right at home? Because what Brewerton was your Friday night home for the longest time, and then Canandaigua, and then Weedsport, and of course Rolling Wheels for all those specials. So you weren't in your own backyard, but man, the fans loved you down there.
I think we just brought a different flavor to it, right? It's I can't believe there's been any Canadian American kind of rivalry or anything, but I think it was the flavor that we brought down, the red, white, the Canadian flag. It was just something different, right? And we tried to be a little different. I mean, we catered to the fans a little more. I always had photos, and I mean that's kind of some of the stories that came out about this whole thing with the Wall of Fame thing at Canandaigua was, some of these kids, and I say kids, they're in their 40s now or late 30s, and they're saying, your truck was the first truck I went to after the race to get a signed photo, and I must have 500 of them at home, right? And it's kind of a neat thing now to hear those kind of stories, and somebody I think Steve Ovens was one of them. He's the announcer there now, and he said, I came to your truck every night, but I was only about 3 feet tall at the time. So, we just brought a different flavor, that's all.
Joe, I did as well. I mean, yours was the first trailer I went to. To me, that was the heyday. You existed at the absolute peak of dirt modified racing. What would you compare now? Sorry, Clinton, I'm stealing a second question in a row, but we have the internet now. We have social media, but there's always been a grapevine in racing. How did it used to work? And I'm leading somewhere with this. We'll get to a point, but where did stories develop and blossom back in the day? How many phone calls had to be made, or was it in the print media?
Yeah, you know what? When I broke into dirt in '82, I remember doing a story with Buffy Swanson at Lebanon, and I'd finished. I mean, they didn't even know who I was there at the time. It was '83, and I think I finished third in the 200 down there. And they're like, "Who's this guy from Canada?" Right? So Buffy got me aside and said, "I want to do a story," and that was the first time I realized that. She was great at writing everything down. But after getting a few more stories from other reporters, I realized that if I was going to do a story with them, I wanted them to record it, because I didn't like the way they wrote down the things that I had said. And I think that's the biggest thing now with the social media and everything is I don't think there's many interviews that are done now that aren't recorded and not as accurate as what they should be of what the driver said. Years ago, some of the penmanship maybe wasn't as good, and it wasn't what we said. So that's, I think, the biggest change we've had with social media and going from scribe to video now.
The reason I asked that, Joe, is can you tell the fans your story, as much as you want to share, about your last night of racing at Canandaigua? And then I want to compare it to what's going on at Merrittville right now.
Well, I've said this online. It's very similar. Canandaigua was just the tip of the iceberg. A lot of people seen it. It had been going on for probably a year, and the tech guys. It wasn't anything to do with dirt. Glenn Donnelly and me got along fine. It was more the tech guys and a lot of the competitors whining to the tech guys. And when I say a lot of the competitors, it was 7th, 8th down, whining about this Canadian that was kicking their rears and winning all these races, right? So they were going to the tech guys and saying, we got to do something about this. He's cheating. And it started a long time ago. I had tires taken, or they wanted to take tires. And then the biggest problem was they couldn't tell me what was going on with the tires. And to me, if you're going to tell a guy he's cheating, you better tell him what's going on with him. And they couldn't. The night at Canandaigua, they came to me and said, and we had just gone through a process at the wheels. I think we finished second or third there in a July 4th race just prior to Canandaigua. And they were all over me about the tires there. And I said, well, I kept saying to them, what is wrong with the tires? Well, there was no reason given. There was nothing wrong with the tires. They couldn't tell me. So at Canandaigua, we lined up for the heat. I had 2 tech inspectors stick their head in the window and say, we don't like the looks of your tires, go change them. And I said, that's not good enough, guys. Like you don't like the looks of them, go change them. Like, you got to tell me more than, Anyway, I just said, I'm running the heat. You do what you got to do at the end of the heat. and let the chips fall where they may. But I told them right there, I said, if you DQ me, I'm loading up the dog and pony show, and we're heading out, and I'm not coming back. And we ran the heat. I went over the scales. They gave me the thumbs up. I thought, just like I thought, I went to the hauler. We were getting ready for the main, and one of my guys come back from getting a hot dog and said, "You're in the consi." And I was like, "What?" So I went to the board, and Jeff Farney told me, he goes, "No, you were DQ'd out of the heat. You're in the consi." And I said, "Okay, Jeff." I said, "I'm loading up. I'm out of here. Take me off the board, right? Like, I'm done." Well, we started loading up, and they actually locked the pit gate so we couldn't get out. God out his tree. But we ended up getting the pit gate open, and we got out of there. And it was just, it was a culmination of just frustration, like, doing well at something you've strived so hard to do well at. And then, competitors and tech guys ganging up on you without the knowledge of the organization. Glenn had no idea what was going on. It was all inner, from fifth down, right? That was where it was coming from. So, much like what we've seen this year in Canada. And I just can't believe, like, 25 years later, this stuff's still going on. And I've said it on Facebook. I said, you guys can't police tires. So please stop. Just let the guys do what they're going to do with the tires, and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, there's no way that 3 guys should have been ousted out of Maryville, and there's no way that those 3 guys should not be coming back. So that's just the way I feel about it. And a lot of people echoed the same thing on Facebook. And I just think you can't police something that you don't know what you're policing. And there's so many variables. It's impossible. Pretty well in a nutshell, Joe, that's it.
So, I mean, I've heard rumors that you said stuff, Joe, like, just open it up. Let them run trash control. Let them run the tires. The stuff you can't police, let it go. Now, does that hurt? I would think that would hurt the smaller budget guys. But it was our buddy Mike Morris on the phone with me today. We were discussing it, and Mike said they're still going to finish. They're still going to finish in the same spot they would, whether the rules are this or the rules are that. On paper, the pecking order is the pecking order. What's your thoughts on opening things up, Joe? And the other argument was, well, now instead of needing this one spec tire that we're all supposed to just leave alone, now I have to have a tire truck worth of tires to compete with the guys who have the transport trucks like you did.
No, I still think keep the spec tire. I mean, we were on a spec tire back then when I quit, going to dirt. I think keep the spec tire. I think the spec tire is a good idea. I had the 6-row tire racks years ago on my open trailer, and we had GFOs and GF1s and GF1.5s and 2s and 3s, and our best excuse, and we just laughed about this the other day with my parents. When we ran bad, it was we always picked the wrong tire, and that was just an easy way out to who knows what the problem was, but it was always we picked the wrong tire. So no, I think the spec tire is still a good deal, but stop sending them to labs and stop looking at them with a micro magnifying glass and things like this. I mean, you know what? There's not much. I mean, there is advantage in tires. We all know that. That's why everybody does something, right? But and even the guys that got ousted. I mean, what I got ousted for is what they can do legally now, and that come about, I think, the next season. So, to me, just open it up. Let the guys do what they want to do. I don't even know what's out there in tires anymore. I don't know what's. I can't say whether there's anything going on or not. But you know what? Let them do what they're doing. Stop trying to tech all that stuff. Just tech the obvious stuff, the visual stuff. And I told this story today to a guy. We're playing with an enduro car right now. My son Michael ran the Pot of Gold race at Flamborough back in last Labor Day, and he wants to do it again this Labor Day. And everybody says to me, "What are you doing? Why are you playing? Get a real race car." And I go, you know what? I enjoy the enduro car because it makes me think. And there isn't much leeway there. It's all stock parts. It's all stock cars. So you really got to, they'll allow you to do some wheel offsets and things like this. So it makes you really think about using stock parts and how you can do something a bit better. That's what racing, I think, is lost today, is some of the guys that are in the shop. You know, when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I built front axles. I built new torque arms. I built things that I could kind of visually see where I wanted to go with this stuff, and some of it really worked. We got on a roll at Humberstone with one of the cars that we didn't build the chassis, but we did a lot of the suspension work, you know, in a little 2-bay shop here in Caister. And, you know, we set them guys on their ear for 4 weeks down there. We won every race. You know, we had guys like Davey Moore and Brian Stevens and Pete McNell and all these guys looking at us going, you know, what's going on with this thing? Like it was a chassis to come out of, it was a Troyer copy, so it didn't even have, it was called a Laser. And we had them covered like from 16th or whatever every night. So I think that's what we miss in racing now is, you know, guys in the shop cutting and grinding and trying to, you know, when you can go and just buy the parts and get a setup sheet and it gets you pretty close. I think that's the problem right now today. So that's all I can say. I think we've lost some of the ingenuity.
You're muted, Adam. Try that again. Lost Adam. Joe, I'll continue on until we figure out Adam. Back in the day, what would have got you back to Canada with Joe? Would a call from Glenn Donnelly have brought you back in? Was there making up? And I'll tell you the rumors we heard, because back in the day, we didn't have Facebook. You weren't allowed to touch tires, right? No grinding, no siping, no nothing. They had to be basically off the rack. And the talk was that you were doing burnouts or scuffing them on the pavement out front of your race shop at the time. And, you know, whether that was true or not, whether they could prove that or not, you know, what was your thoughts on that? So 2 parts. Were you scuffing them out on the blacktop, and would a call from Donnelly have brought you back in? I
had a real smart guy working with me at the time, and unfortunately he passed away just in the last few years, rest in peace. But we were scuffing them on the asphalt, and he actually built a front axle, and I got a picture of it. I should post it for you guys. So it's still here. He had a front axle with spindles on it and everything and a tie rod, and we put a 45-gallon VP race fuel drum on the top of it. It had a tongue on it, and we put 2 rear tires on it, tow them in, and drag it down the road. And it would just put a nice feather across the tire. And this is what made us so mad with dirt was the tires were basically looked like you just ran, you know, 50 laps or 100 laps on an abrasive surface, right? And our beef was, what's wrong with that, right? Not like the looks of them wasn't good enough for us, right? So, and I still got that piece. It still sits back in the yard here, and it's all rusted and it looks like hell right now. But it was the tire scuffer, and then it evolved from there. I can't say that was it. I mean, you know, now they've got, you know, the pinwheels and all that. I haven't even used one of these. Now they've got machines that turn them while you're doing it. And like, I'd love to try that stuff, but we were pretty primitive. But you know, we just figured it out before everybody else, and that's what really made us mad and brought us to the point where, you know what, we're not hanging around here. We had figured it out better than a lot of guys, and we had the deal for a while, and nobody could come up with what's going on. But yes, tire scuffing was true, and it's an old art, really. I mean, how many now I'll use Winston Cup. Go back to Winston Cup when they used to put them on, scuff them, and they were called scuffs, right? They had you know, 6 or 7 different sets of scuffs ready to go for the race. That's all we were doing.
You know, Joe, I like it that you're like, you admit that you're bending the rules, but, you know, are you bending the rules if the result would be the same as the 50 laps on a Brockville surface? You know, the tires were the same. How could they prove it? I can see your point. I think, you know, it comes back to it.
Well,
Adam,
wait a second,
you want
Clint.
to jump in there with? What's that?
I want to jump in. What do you mean it's breaking the rules? Who says you've got to buy a tire from Hoosier and put it on your race car?
Well, the rules said you weren't allowed to scuff them, and Joe just admitted he was
put it on
scuffing.
your minivan.
No, I think the rule said no siping or no cutting at the time.
Okay.
Grinding had never been heard of. and there was, scuffing. How can you say no scuffing? But I think that was the rule. I'd have to bring out I don't even know if I've got an old dirt rule left, but I think it said
You do.
no cutting and no siping, and we weren't cutting or siping. So,
Well, you know what the funny part of that is, Joe? Sorry, I didn't cut you off. During the pandemic, when tires were a problem, Hoosier was sending out bulletins telling our drivers to grind the tires to get more wear and more life out of them. So now they're recommending that. But, Adam, where do you want to go from here?
No, you know what I see, Joe, that where ingenuity is still alive, and I miss Kent Peckham. I enjoyed seeing Kent at the race. I enjoyed seeing Kent anywhere and having conversations with him. He was one of the most insightful people. You knew him a lot better than I did, but he was a smart dude.
well, I'll tell you, Kent, Warren Conium introduced me to Kent. I mean, we're going to go back. Warren was running karts with his son, and I met Kent through Warren, and that's how the whole deal started. It was I went to a couple of kart races. Kent was running the Sportsman at Genesee, I believe, at the time, and working for Kodak, and it just all fell together at his contract was up at Kodak, and he was kind of like not doing anything, and it's like, and I think our first deal was he went to Troyer and put a car together for me. And we come out of there and almost won the 200 at Canandaigua. I think we were third. It wasn't for just some minor brake problems. We would have won the thing. And it all started from that deal. And then we built the LTR. That was one of Kent's dreams to build something for Syracuse. And that car was just, that was it was a work of art, that car. So, I mean, that's why I say the ingenuity part that's what always intrigued me, was the challenge. Still does to this day. I got a challenge with this enduro car. I tell Michael I'm going to get him running with the top guys, and that's my challenge. And I told him, once I get you the top guys, then it's up to you. You got to drive it. I'm going to get you the top guys. That's all.
There is a lot of strategy involved. That Flamborough race fascinates me because the drivers who do well consistently, and I've watched them do well with various different cars. They go in there with a strategy and they execute it. So I'm sure you've watched.
Well, what I love about it, I love the fact that you go through tech, you line up. There's no heats, there's no hot laps, there's nothing. I mean, we did this in May. What we had in the car, what we did with the car, was all we had. Is it going to work? Isn't it going to work? And it worked mediocre. I mean, he was 9th out of 60 cars, so I was happy. But I was, he said that on the way home, he said, "Dad, the car was perfect." I said, "The car wasn't perfect. You didn't win." So I don't go to the racetrack to finish 9th. I told him. So we'll get there. But it's been very challenging, and that's the fun part about it. The other night I was working on the car, and I told him he's got to get the dash out of it, right? And he ran with the dash in May, and I worked on the car. He said, "I'm not pulling the dash. That's a lot of work." I said, "Hey, you got to pull the dash." So I sent him a picture early in the night of the dash in. Then I sent him a picture of the dash out at the end of the night, and his reply was, "I worry about you." So that's
the dedication. Is there anything that reminds you of your days in dirt modified racing, Joe? And whether it's the rules or the atmosphere or the how it seems from the outside, is there anything in the sport today that reminds you of those days?
Well, that tire fiasco at Maryville really brought back memories. I feel for those guys. I don't know. I don't care what they were doing. I don't think it should have came to what it came to. I think that was, and I can't even comment on what went on behind the scenes because I don't know. But some of the speculation was, if it's underhanded like they say it is, it's got no place in racing, and I can't believe that, in this day and age we can even bring ourselves to that. So I mean, but that brought back some awful memories. I
was thinking positive. I was hoping you might find a positive thing that you can link to the old days.
I got a couple for you, Joe.
Go ahead.
Joe, I got one for you. So, Adam and I were fortunate enough to spend about 20 great party years at Syracuse. Saw some amazing stuff, saw some amazing action, had some fantastic times. What was maybe your best memory of Syracuse, and what do you tell the next generation, who maybe have heard of it? Like, I try and explain to my kid now who's a racing fan, there was just nothing like it. What do you tell the guys who never got to experience and maybe one of your best memories from there?
Syracuse was just a huge challenge for me, and I use that word a lot, but I guess that's what I feed off of is the challenge. And I think the memory that stands out in my head the most with Syracuse is I was in weed sport, and because we spent so much time down there, I knew the dirt guys, I knew all the guys, I knew the dirt vision guys, all those guys in the video room, and the bikes were running at the mile, the TT flat track bikes anyway, the Harleys, and the AMA guys, and we were camped out at Wheat Sport, and they said to me, "Hey, jump in. We're going over to the mile to watch those guys on the mile on the bikes." And I thought, So I jumped in with them and went over. And when I seen these guys on the mile on those Harleys, doing like 120 or 130 mile an hour on the straightaways, and then, all tucked down in, and then, leaning them over in the corner and their lead shoe down, I went, I got to go faster here. I mean, like, if these guys can do this, there shouldn't even be a thought in my mind why we can't go faster here. So I think that was really what kicked the crutches out from underneath me with Syracuse and said, you've got to attack this place different because these guys they're heads and tails above you. So that was one of my and I always tell that story because that was really the turning point, was watching those guys at the mile. It was crazy.
Joe, sorry, I just jump in. I remember we had the flat track Canada bikes at Oshweekend about 6 years ago for the first time. We had a midweek practice, and a bunch of our sprint car teams were up there, and Stiers was up on the back row with me, and we were watching these guys go, and these teenage kids slide jobbing each other like they got sprint cars, and Glenn just grabbed me by the arm and dug his claws in so thick and goes, "These kids are nuts!" And when you can impress our sprint car guys, the flat track bikes, and we're going to talk about that because they're part of the Saturday weekend of our big speed week. Quickly, Joe, we got you for about 5-7 more minutes before we bring on Stuart Friesen. He mentioned you were one of the first guys that reached out when he was able to get his first Syracuse win. As a kid who watched you race at Ransomville at his family track, how cool is that? Or is that like, damn, I wish I got that done when Stuart pulled it off?
No, you know what? I was choked up when Stuart won the first one, and I'll tell you, I can't believe it still to this day. And I don't know if he remembers this or not, but when he got out of the car, they started to interview him, and he said, "I dedicate this one to Joe Plazic." And I was in awe. Like, okay, this guy's just won the biggest race of the year. He's won the biggest race of his young career. To get out to mention my name, I was in awe. And still to this day, I'm indebted to him because it was probably I don't get too emotional, but that was pretty emotional. That was. I mean, we put a lot into it down there. Never got the job done. For him to get the job done and get out and say that, huge. It was just huge for us.
No, that's really cool. Joe, I don't know if you've watched any of our debate recently on a start-finish line. Have you followed our discussions at all?
No, I have not. Help me.
So we have been arguing on how to score the live finish of a dirt race. And there is one side who believes that it should just be transponders, and there's another side who says it should be visual. Because the car that crosses the line first should be the winner, and the fans can see the car that crossed the line first.
But how can you have a different outcome with tech and with visual? Tech should be better.
It would depend what direction the cars are going as they cross the line. So if someone spins out across the line or goes backwards across the line.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
The contention is.
But wait a minute, Adam. Hold on, Joe. This isn't even what the argument's about. The argument is about You want a visual line, like a pavement track, painted across the track, so you as a fan or an announcer can visually see when the car touches the nose, because you can't accept that you don't know where the line is as they come under the flag stand. My argument, Joe, is we see a close race, they come across, we look up to the scoreboard, we see it flash up there, the transponder decides who wins by science instead of
So,
a
Clinton,
crappy
we have
scorekeeper
company.
who's going to screw you. Go
Clinton,
ahead.
we have company tonight. If you're going to say really stupid things, don't put them in my mouth.
Well,
You
why
can
don't we
put
do
stupid-
this?
Let
Why
Joe
don't
talk.
we do this? Why don't we put a line on the track and put the beam for the transponder right at that line?
Good question. That's Adam's question. My quick reply, Joe, is every car has a different wheelbase. So on a sprint car, we run them up front on the shocks. On the mini stocks, we run them on the back. So the line will always be off by
Didn't know that.
3 to 6 feet. So they're not
Did
the
you-
same on every car.
Well,
And that's
Clinton,
my
did you
argument to
also
Adam.
know
It's not easy.
at the Kentucky Derby,
So,
you don't know what part of the horse is going to cross the line first. A race car generally has solid pieces. They don't move, they don't flex. If we can figure out which freaking horse crossed the line first, or which track and field runner, even though it could be a variety of their parts that cross first, surely we can take a big hunk of steel and determine which one crossed the line first, not one which triggered a transponder freaking blip.
I can't believe you're still
well, if
arguing
the
with this.
NHL can go to video goals, go to Toronto to say, why don't you guys go to Toronto to decide the finish?
I thought I had you on my side, Joe, and then you just flip-flop right over to Adams.
You know what? This is a political thing. I'm trying to be like a politician.
No,
I'm trying to go right
here's
down.
my argument, though. I'll give it to Adam. Okay, if a car comes skidding across the backwards, I think we have enough sense to adjust that finish or look at that. But on a daily, or let's say on a yearly basis, out of the 500 races we attend, 499 of them and a half are never going to have the problem you're bitching about.
I care about all of them, Clinton. There was a race. There was a race at Humberstone in the last 5 years that was declared a tie. Joe, how much would Victory Lane suck if you had to share it with Brett Hearn?
Yeah, I tell you, there's got to be a winner.
But let me preface it this way. Hold on, Joe. The transponder showed they started the race, and they came across the line at the exact same time. So Adam's argument is one car's nose might have been a little bit farther, and if we had a line, you would be able to determine that Joe beat Brett because your nose was out that farther. My argument is it was a mini stock race or something like that, at which point
No, it was the premier race. It was a sportsman race. A sportsman race at Humberstone.
Okay, I'll give it to you that. So even better, the cars are identical with the transponder in the exact same spot. I think that's a badass story that they were the exact same time crossing the line.
Is the transponder line at the start-finish line? Sorry, go ahead, Joe. That's rude.
We used to have a saying when there was an argument that wasn't being won by anybody. We used to say, "You're sawing sawdust," and I think this is a prime example of that right now. I think
that's fair. That's fair. Joe, let's talk briefly about your foray into NASCAR after you left dirt. Adam and I obviously were out on the tour. We're flying up to Saskatoon tomorrow to be back to put it up on Flow and TSN Go. What were your quick memories of the NASCAR deal that it is now, and it was NASCAR when you were there?
Well, I'll tell you, it gave me a new respect for a couple things. It gave me a new respect for those cars because I never really had driven a big, heavy, underpowered car like that. I know my dad wanted to do it badly, and we did it. And I remember him coming to me after the first time I took the car out and said, "What do you think?" And you got to remember, I was a guy coming from a 750, 800 horse dirt modified to a 500 horse or 475 or whatever it was at the time NASCAR, and I said, I'm not sure the work is worth the the excitement, because it was a lot of work to drive the cars, and they weren't that awfully exhilarating to drive, right? So, but what it did, it showed me that I never understood when a Cup guy said the car was better in the long run than the short run. Never really understood that. I understood it when I got the NASCAR. I mean, we went to Calgary and we had a car that it qualified 30th the boys said to me, "Don't get a lap down. Don't get a lap down." So at the first race, I said to them, "Keep talking to me. Tell me where the leaders are. Tell me where the leaders are." They were saying, leaders are quarter straight back. Then all of a sudden they stopped talking to me. So I'm thinking, what's going on? So I come on the rail and go, where are the leaders? And they go, "Don't worry about the leaders. You're catching them." So our car was better in the long run than the short run. And we ended up getting up front, leading the thing, and could have won it. But we ended up taking on tires and fuel with like 100 to go. It was a 300 at the time. And that set of tires we got for the end just weren't like the first set. And we ended up fifth. So that was one thing that I learned. The next thing was the road courses. And I never really had a real respect for road course guys. I always thought, these guys aren't real racers, right? Well, after I tried, Mosport and Toronto Indy, I had a big respect for road race guys. There's a lot going on in a road race car that nobody understands. It's a whole new concept. And would we have got better at it? I think so. But, the world will never know. We were pretty bad at road course.
I find, actually, Joe, the young people coming up through road racing right now, to me, remind me of old school short track racers. They really have a similar mentality. Mess with me and I'm going to mess with you harder. It's fascinating for me to watch all of that.
Have we got much more time? I got a real good one about Mosport.
Sure.
Spencer, can we bring on one additional guest, or is that not possible?
Not right away.
Okay, so
ahead,
can
Joe.
I get
give
2
us that
minutes?
story? Yeah, give it to us for sure.
So we get to Mosport, and it's chance of rain, and they say, they have a driver's meeting and say, "We are going to run this thing in the rain, guys." So being a rookie and a rookie team and being really naive, we grooved up slicks into rain tires. None of the other cast, I think maybe 2 or 3 other teams did. Not many guys did. They were like, they ain't going to run us this thing. So we ended up grooving up some tires. We started 30th. Didn't it start to pour? Like monsoon pour. And they called me and put the rain tires on, and we came from qualifying 30th to the top 10. And if they hadn't have flagged it and shortened the race because of the rain, we might have had a shot at the top 5 and maybe even won the thing. And that was one of the things where I learned that those guys were having trouble driving with the right foot and driving sideways. And when they came to that, we shot. So it was a pretty cool experience.
Springer, bring him on, Spencer, if you got him. Joe, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're going to try and get Stuart on here quickly along with you. But Stuart's coming on. We're going to talk to him a little bit. But, Joe, we'd like to have you back for sure. We could talk forever. And there's Stuart and Parker. Hey, Stuart, welcome to the show.
Guys. How are you?
We were just talking about you, Stuart.
All right. Cool.
All good, I hope.
So, yeah.
How's
just
it going,
joking about it.
It's going good. How are you?
Very good, very good. I just told a cool story about you. I don't know if you heard it or not, but it's pretty good.
I just got on here.
Okay, so you didn't hear it.
We'll let him know, Joe. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. We will, Joe. We appreciate so much you stopping by.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
All right, Joe. Be good.
You too.
Great to have Joe Plazic on talking about the old days and all the cool stuff that went on. I think we could spend a couple hours with Joe here. Stuart, he was just mentioning that he was honored and it got him choked up when you got out at Syracuse and said this one's for Joe Plazic after finally getting it done at the mile. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe definitely paved the way at the mile for us Canadians, and to finally get that done after all the years he put into trying to conquer it and being so fast there. That was definitely a special day for all of us back in 2010. It's a good deal.
Well, Adam, we got some business to go through with Stuart, but you can start it off, and then we'll get to the fun stuff.
I was going to ask, so let's do this. I was going to ask how the season's been going, and then Clinton can talk about what's coming up. So, Stuart, sum up your season to this point, both in the trucks and in the modified. How would you rate things?
Yeah, for sure. It's been an interesting season. We've been really busy. Jess and I took over a little bit more of the management side of the truck team this year, so that's been definitely exciting and a lot of fun. And we've had some really good results. A bunch of top fives since May, and made a lot of points, and we're really right on the cusp of the playoffs right now in the Truck Series. So we're running good. We made a lot of points at Pocono the other day, and got caught up in an accident towards the end of the race, and kind of lost all that headway we made. So we're going into Richmond this weekend, a few points below the cut line, and hopefully we can go have a good day, make some stage points, and get ourselves into that playoffs. So it's exciting. And then on the modified side of it, we've just been busy as usual. Haven't raced as much modified stuff this year as we have in the past, but it's been challenging, and we've had some big wins as well. So coming off a fourth place in the big Utica Richie Evans race just the other night, and won one up at Devil's Bowl in Vermont. So it's been a little bit of an up and down season for us, but we're actually getting ready to head to Quebec tomorrow morning for 2 short track Super Series events at Granby and RPM. So first time for the short track Super Series going north of the border, and it's be definitely different. Usually we're used to going up there with spec 358s and big blocks. So this year we're going with sail panels and American racers and open motors. So it should be a good two days for us.
Stu, we're on to talk about some exciting news related to the Schweeken race. We're able to confirm today you'll be back to race the Pinty's 100 and the Freshstone Dirt Classic on the Monday and Tuesday. And those, we'll be putting you with the Glenn Steyrs Racing, the GSR team, with David White preparing the car. So that's exciting. And then we also are going to be announcing you'll be racing 360s both nights. And also, Jessica will be racing 3 nights. So that's big for the Schweeken Sprint Car fans to have our World of Outlaws winner and our Canadian Sprint Car National winner back in the Sit and Bull Shootout. Spencer, throw that logo up if you will. We just released this logo. That's the first look at it. Sit and Bull Tire Shootout. All the sprint races from both days are going to be filmed and airing on TSN. So excited about that. Stuart, welcome back. You had a great race against Trayton last year. Nobody really knew how those cars were going to work on the dirt, man, but after the second caution, everybody started going 4 and 5 wide, and we knew we had a hit on our hands. 2 races this year, each pay $25,000 to win. Big money on the line. What's your thoughts on coming back?
I'm certainly excited to get back to the Pinty series again. Being on the GSR team with David White, like you mentioned, is something I'm pumped up to do. We had a lot of fun with Scott Steckley and his son Kyle, crew chief in last year. So hopefully we can use some of those notes and get the GSR cars just as fast. And then the sprint car side of it as well is really exciting. Being my buddy Brett Stratford is in the shop and helping in the fabrication end of it with Glenn Steyrs Racing, and actually started my sprint car career driving one of Glenn's cars at Ransomville way back, probably over 20 years ago. So it's cool to come full circle and be able to jump in one of Glenn's cars again, and just exciting. Just a big 2-day show for Schweeken, for the Southern Ontario race fans. Race fans all over Ontario and Canada for that part. It's just a great event. It was so much fun to be a part of last year. Now bringing Jess with us and having a 2-day Pinty show is going to be really, really exciting.
Stuart, when you get the opportunity to come up and do something like this, I mean, the sprint car, you're a sprint car racer, so that's one thing. But to jump into a Pinty series car where you're kind of a star brought in to perform, do you take a win in that race to mean as much as a win in anything else that you do? Do you have to mind your manners a little bit more? I know you were on the receiving end of a last lap pass that I don't think you enjoyed very much. Where does that put your mindset coming into this year, having 2 chances to do it again?
Well, certainly, I definitely have a debt to pay with Trayton there, but I kind of rubbed him to get by him, to get to the lead. And then, he just dropped the plow and knocked me out of the way there the last lap. And that's kind of how it goes. That's NASCAR racing. It's the gloves are off on the last lap. You see it from the Cup Series all the way down through Xfinity and the Truck Series. That's what we deal with. There's a little bit more. I should say a little bit more full contact racing, but there is. There's a little bit more rubbing out there, and it was kind of no harm, no foul. We didn't wreck. We raced back to the line. So that being said, if I'm second place or in the top 5 towards the end of the races this year, I might race it a little bit differently. But like I said, it's just a big event for the Speedway, for everybody in the Southern Ontario, for all our Canadian race fans, and the way the track raced last year was just really, really cool. It reminded me of the truck races we had at Eldora, where you had to be up on the top. You could pass on the bottom, but that was the preferred lane on the top of the Speedway. So whenever you see that, it's a lot of fun. It opens the door for slide jobs, bump and run, and a lot of different exciting racing. So definitely the surface and the shape of Ohsweken played into that being a great race. So to be able to do it twice this year should be even better.
Stuart, let's talk a bit about how the deal came together. I mean, before you and I even solidified our deal, Jessica had her deal done with John Brush. John Brush has gone out and wanted to put a deal with Jessica. And I think I was in Newfoundland, Adam, and we were talking. Stuart was flying out of somewhere. And so, by the way, do you know Jessica was racing? And I think I might have been the one that dropped that bomb on Jess for Stu. But how is it to race against Jessica? I don't think you guys have had much chance to do that. She hasn't raced much at all lately in the sprint cars. What's your thoughts on that, Stu?
Yeah, for sure. She hasn't been in a sprint car in quite a few years, probably since Parker was just born, so it's probably been 5 or 6 years. But no, it's exciting. We get to race a lot, on the same team, at Utica Rome and Fonda Speedways on Friday and Saturday nights for our HFR team. So, very analytical driver. She's very talented and, definitely gets the most out of a race car and setup. So she knows the ins and outs of sprint car racing. And, when I jumped in the Hills car last year, Jason Hill's car last year, used some of her setup notes, from the Canadian Nationals. So this year I'm going to have to share those notes a little bit and, but definitely was able to add to it a little bit. So we're definitely coming in there with a full notebook from Ohsweken, from sprint car racing, history. And hopefully we can go there and run just as good as I did last year.
Well, you two make bets, Stuart? Like in this sort of a deal where it's even Steven, you're both coming out to run sprint cars. Will there be side bets on this sort of thing?
No, that's a tough one right there. I think as long as Jess is competitive and able to get in the show and get the car handling the way she wants, she's going to be really, really tough to beat. But that being said, I do know some of her preferences and character traits behind the wheel as a driver. So, I might have a little bit of the upper hand on how to get a little bit more physical and shove her around a little bit. So we'll see what happens. It's just always fun. It's great to be able to race with her. And, Miles has been a great friend of the family for so long and a supporter of Jess's as well as John and Wendy at Corpac. So, for her to be able to come across the border and do this race this year just makes a lot of sense. So it's definitely a homecoming. It was a homecoming for me last year, and now to bring the whole family with us this year and have that support from John and Wendy and Corpac and the whole Hills Racing team is just something we're really, really excited about. And I don't know about any bets, but there'll be a lot of shit talking, I'm sure, either way.
You better behave, because if I know you guys, she's probably going to end up being your spotter as soon as you get out of the sprint car. So you're going to go from racing for opposite teams back to being teammates and partners again. Stu, thanks so much for your time. We may call on you once or twice more as we approach this big event. Super excited to have you back, and hopefully you and Trayton can put on the same show. By the way, Glenn just sponsored Trayton, so you both be GSR cars, so you might have to play a little bit nicer than you had to last year. So,
all right, well, maybe on the first night.
Fair enough.
Yeah, good
Thanks,
plan.
Stuart.
Hey, good luck at Richmond, man. Get yourself into those playoffs.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Thanks for having me on. Thanks to all our great Canadian race fans for following along with us, and we'll do our best, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks, Stu. Talk to you soon. So while we're on that vein, before we get into it, Spencer rolled the flyers. We still have a lot of VIP tickets. Not a lot, actually. VIP tickets are going quickly, and we also have our Speed Pass available, $125. That's our VIP package right there, $95. Gets you dinner and some entertainment prior to each night's racing. and a pit pass along with a reserved seat. So if you're interested in both of those, we can get you hooked up by emailing Lori at Lori Greger there. It's on the bottom. And also our speed pass, if we can take a look at that, Spencer, $125, get you 5 nights with pit access, including the Race Champion Sportsman, a full card Friday, the flat track bike Saturday, micro sprints Sunday, and then of course the Fresh Stone Dirt Classic and the Pinty's 100, both announced this week, paying $25,000 to win, plus the Sit and Bowl Sprint Car Shootout, which is going to feature crates and 360s, all for 25 laps each night. All the races will be airing on TSN, and they will all be live streamed on GeForce, except the 2 100-lap NPS features. So make sure you check it out, OshwegansSpeedway.ca, for tickets and anything else you might need. Adam, you and I went to Edmonton on the weekend and back to Saskatoon tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about the Eldora Million. So let's just touch on a couple things. How about some Eldora Million? Let's look at the Shark Racing picture, Spencer. What a great deal for these guys, for Logan Schuchart to get it done. You know, the 2 pictures that were sent to us, this was them about 8-9 years ago when they were just starting out. You know, it's a Subaru wagon towing on an open utility trailer. And then, so that's a cool deal. Show the second picture if you can, Spencer. That's 2011. This is from Oshwegan Speedway, Braden McMahon. I took this picture July 29, 2014 at Oshwegan. I just spent the week in Canada hanging out with the Shark team. The crew guys slept under their cars in the trailer, pulling the cars. They got one room so everyone on the team could shower, and tonight they won $1 million. So a bit of Oshwegan connection. Just goes to show, Adam, don't ever give up on your racing dreams. Not so long ago, those guys were sharing one hotel room and towing with Mom's station wagon, and now they're winning $1 million in the biggest sprint car race in the world. So keep it up. I thought that was cool.
It's so cool, right? This sport, and you know, when we get to travel, Clinton, there's quite a bit of time to sit around, right? Like sitting around at the airport, sitting around on an airplane, and you get thinking, some of the stuff that we're able to do. I mean, I really couldn't have dreamed it. I mean, I had a lot of big dreams and aspirations, but to think about it, someone flies us to other parts of the country to call a race. We get the best seats in the house every week. Everywhere we go, we have the best seat you can have, and we get to talk about what we love. And now we get to do it with friends, right? Get to jump on a plane with you, or travel with Joel Robinson, Dave Bradley, and like we really do. We don't take enough time to sit back and say, "Holy shit, this is cool."
Like I don't fly well, right? Like we all know, I struggle to eat. I'm motion sick as all heck. I hate flying, but you know, I figure, heck, man, you know, I can't complain about this. You know, TSN is paying us to fly around the country to do these races. We get to stay in beautiful hotels. We eat well. You know, what the hell am I complaining? Well, that's the best advice you gave me in the weekend. You know, as you know, on the crazy weeks, I think, oh, it can just be Monday and put this all behind me. And you're the one got me thinking, you know, you worked hard to get here, man. Let's enjoy this. Don't just dread it all away. And I think that's been it. But, you know, speaking of aspirations, can we talk about airplane etiquette? Because we just got off 2 flights. We have to go back. And all this time to sit around. So
that's how close, folks. That's how close Clinton Geoffrey was to being on the no-fly list. Not a word a lie. I thought it was over.
I thought, how am I getting home from Saskatoon if I kill this guy on the plane? So show the picture, Spencer, if you got it. This guy beside me, we both had an aisle seat, and this was what my flight was like for 2 hours on the way to Edmonton. This guy's ass, and that's the polite pick, because his belt didn't work very much, and when he bent over, I got a lot of butt right in the face, and finally I elbowed the guy, and he just wasn't getting the message. It was not good. So then we started talking about rules. You know, how about some etiquette? Like, the only seat you're allowed to touch on the airplane is the one your ass is supposed to be in. Don't grab my seat to adjust yours, to pull yourself up. Just keep your hands off my seat. And the other thing that pissed me off, too, is people having a party in the aisle. There's 3 women there, and they're having a chat for an hour. I'm like, just everybody sit down, please. It was not polite. And now, tomorrow we get back on it. Come back on Thursday, another 7 hours worth of airtime. But it's fun most of the time.
I didn't get as much ass as you did on the flight. Well, what I got, because my knees touched the seat in front of me. I can't help it. It's where my legs are. And the son of a gun in front of me must have got up 5 times, and every time he came back, he jumped higher to fall back into his seat. And it was like somebody hitting your kneecaps with a hammer every time he sat down. Like, oh my God. I didn't have to get as angry as you did. I was just like, okay, brace for it. But yeah, you had a tough time. I felt for you.
It's all right. NPS in Edmonton, good race. Adam, I thought Marc-Antoine Cameron was the only constant there. He smoked everybody from the start to finish. A lot of the other guys had issues, came and went. It was a lot of that. Good race. Some of the teams have been preparing, getting ready to go Wednesday in Saskatoon for doubleheaders. Spencer, show the Joe Chisholm video I think I sent. 6 of the teams got together, and this is how they prepare their stuff. We had a couple pictures and some videos. Joe Chisholm from Racetime Radio sent us in. He's down there with the Andrew Ranger crew. So they got together at Fuel Donkey, Fuel Stop, and Truck Stop, one of DJ Kangton's sponsors, and kind of cool that 6 teams get together and all help each other get their cars ready for the next bit of racing going on Wednesday, Adam.
And as we saw at the hotel when we got back, when we got up the next morning, all of the haulers from the race parked side by side at the hotel. It really is a sport of camaraderie. Trayton Lapsevich, the points leader by a lot, his car quits on the pace lap. So the push truck pushes him to the start of pit road. He's all the way at the other end of pit road. And there had to be 4 different crews, Clinton, that ran out and helped push his car down to his pit stall. The guy that they're all trying to dethrone, to knock off of his pedestal. But that's what the sport's about, and especially when you travel like that. Racers want to beat each other, but they want to do it on the racetrack.
So we heard the message from a lot of the teams that they were trying to conserve their stuff to get through. I assume that's going to be for the first of the 2 races at Saskatoon. But, man, I'm excited for the late night race under the lights at Saskatoon. All the gloves will be off. All the paybacks from the week will be coming to the fruition. So make sure to be a bit later here because we're 2 hours to the west. So the times will be off a little bit later. The first race, I think, goes 8 or 9:30 around here. And the last one will probably be about 11-ish. So make sure you check that out. We'll be on TSN Plus and Flow Racing for both those events from Wednesday evening at Sutherland Raceway in Saskatoon.
And I'm trying to think, is there another oval race after Saskatoon before Delaware?
GP3R, then the 2
iCar,
Oshweekend races, but I think that's it.
Then iCar, and then CTMP. So,
and then Delaware.
And the reason these drivers know they have 2 months to get these cars fixed for Delaware. Oh, you didn't hear about this. So Saturday night while the race is going on, my family group chat is going crazy. Decker, this sweetheart right here behind us, he found himself a skunk. The skunk might have got Decker, but Decker got the skunk. And boy, did it smell him. It still stinks in here.
I told you that. Remember I was telling you about the peroxide because our dog had the same problem and they were already on that mission. Yeah, we were watching the Blue Jays game, eating dinner, and then you're like, oh, man, shit is going down. That's a tough one.
Dawn dish soap, peroxide, and baking powder. He smells good now, but the house is thank goodness it's a little bit cooler in here because we got all the windows open and
all right, last but not least, the Burger Banana video of the week. Give it to us. You want to say anything before we close out the show? And I see you at the airport tomorrow.
Greg and I both agree, and this is not a word of lie. This was your most enthusiastic work in years. Like, we were both so impressed with how well you did this. That's all I've got to say is congratulations.
Well, since I'm still trying to avoid eating bananas, at least I could dress like one. Here's your Burger Barn Bit of the Week. We'll see you next week, everybody. Don't forget Christmas in July. Christmas in August. Hadash weekend. Christmas in July. I don't know. Christmas in July.
No, Christmas. It's still July.
Yeah, but will it be Friday? Yeah, Christmas in July, Friday. Hadash weekend. Make sure you come out and see us. We'll be there for that full card of action. And here you go, Burger Barn Bit of the Week. We're off to Saskatoon. See you next week.
Hey guys, I got a slick track report for you here. It's starting to split up down here. These cars been peeling out all night, so you better be careful. It's going to be really slippery down here tonight on Halloween in July.